I'm going to call the meeting to order. Everybody could please rise, face the flag, and pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to welcome everybody to the June Borough Board meeting. Let's start by taking attendance. We have everybody here except Councilmember Borelli's office. If everybody can just take a minute to look at the minutes. Brooke had already sent them out. So, okay, Jerry Goldman, second, Dana McGee, okay. So we have a presentation by the Department of City Planning. They're going to be giving us a presentation on the Staten Island East Shore Special Coastal Risk District Text Amendment and the rezoning application. Numbers 170-373-ZMR and N17037-4ZRR pursuant to ULURP. Then after that, after their presentation, we will be taking a vote on the resolution. So, City Planning, I turn the floor over to you.
Good evening. I'm Garcia Duran, Director of City Planning here on Staten Island, and with me today I've got Trevor Johnson from our Waterfront and Open Space Division, Alina Farishta, who is our South Shore team leader here on Staten Island, and a colleague from the South Shore, Louise Sullivan. So, as you're probably aware, last April we actually released the East Shore Neighborhood Initiative report, which had a number of recommendations that we'd actually put together based on our work with the East Shore Advisory Committee, covering a 4 square mile area covered from Great Hill to Port Wadsworth. One of the first recommendations that we actually advanced into a zoning action is this text amendment and rezoning that's before you today. This was something that was advocated by the council member and borough president, trying to advance as soon as possible when their primary recommendations that we'd like to see advanced. And we worked with them to do so. We've actually, as you are probably aware, this is something that is actually expecting to be Ward 2 and 3, and therefore requires a public hearing here at Borough Board. TV2 and TV3 both recommended adoption of these zoning text amendment without conditions. Ideally, to know issues to work out today, but nonetheless, Trevor is going to be walking us through a summary of this proposed text amendment and rezoning.
Sure. I actually recommend, in the interest of keeping things timely, to just jump to page 7. The first 6 slides are background, which, to summarize, describe the fact that this proposal that's here today comes from the work that was done under our Resilient Neighborhoods East Shore initiative. And that was work that was begun in 2013 and involved a significant amount of community outreach throughout the East Shore study area, which I'll talk about in a second, to a range of stakeholders, civic associations, a community advisory committee, and other neighborhood leaders. That resulted in the release of our Resilient Neighborhoods East Shore report on April 14th that outlines recommendations that apply throughout the East Shore study area. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to go to ECP's website and download that report and have a look. But one of the recommendations that was outlined in that report was for the buyout areas, which we're now advancing earlier than other recommendations from the reports due to the unique conditions in those geographies. So on slide 8, the area context shown on this map, the larger geography shown in a white sort of dashed line, the Shore study area, which is where our neighborhood recommendations apply in various sub-areas, and then shown in the sort of white area is the buyout areas, the state buyout areas. One thing to note about these areas shown on slide 8 is that they're especially low lying. They have a significant amount of freshwater wetlands within them that are regulated by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and they had significant damage from Hurricane Sandy, and were the subject of buyout programs that were implemented by the state that I'll talk about now. Some key characteristics about the buyout programs that was available in the neighborhoods of Ocean Breeze, Grand Beach, and Oakland Beach. These were areas that were designated both because of the significant flood risk that exists in these areas, but also because the majority of homeowners chose to participate. The homes were purchased at pre-storm value. Both homes and vacant land were eligible also to note that participation hasn't been 100%. Within Oakwood Beach, there's been a relatively high amount of participation, so about 80% of lots in Oakwood Beach, in the Oakwood Beach buyout area will be publicly owned at the conclusion of the buyout program, whereas in Grand Beach and Ocean Breeze, there's been a lower level of participation overall, and so only about 60% of lots at the conclusion of the buyout program will be owned by government. Slides 11 and 12 just show a couple images of the sort of prevailing character of these neighborhoods, more or less today. I think the thing to note is that the buyout program has drastically redefined the character of these neighborhoods by purchasing a lot of previously privately owned property and demolishing the structures on those lots. So the summary of issues, as I mentioned, significant flood risk in the buyout areas. Even after the Army Corps of Engineers line of protection is erected, these areas are so low-lying that they'll remain in the floodplain and have ongoing flood risk despite the significant reduction in flood risk from the Army Corps' line of protection. Secondly, they are located adjacent to freshwater wetlands, and those wetlands are also largely make up the same geography as DEP's Blue Belt program, and so the function of the wetlands, the ecological function of the wetlands, and the natural drainage function that they provide can be impaired by continued development there. And then finally, the state buyout program won't reach 100%, so there will be property owners who can manage homeowners. The current zoning in the buyout areas is a mix of largely low density residential districts. In Oakwood Beach, there's R3X and R31 zoning, which allows a combination of 1 and 2 family detached and semi-detached residences in various locations. And then in Grand Beach and Ocean Breeze, there is R31 zoning that allows 1 and 2 family detached and semi-detached residences, and R32 zoning, which would actually allow for multifamily small apartment buildings in some areas. And then there is a small commercial overlay, a C11 commercial overlay that's mapped in Grand Beach. This allows low density commercial uses, primarily local retail or service uses. Any development that would happen in these areas now would happen as of right. So finally, getting to our proposal, the goals of the proposal are threefold. The first is that we are seeking to align local zoning with the goals of the New York State buyout program. Currently, as of right, permitted as of right development in these geographies is not in keeping with the long-term plan for open space in these areas. Secondly, given this significant degree of flood risk in the buyout areas, we would seek to reduce flood risk by limiting future residential density, while also ensuring that any development that does occur undergoes sufficient review to ensure that it's not imposing or impairing the function of wetlands, and is also not creating undue hazards to public safety. And then thirdly, in commercial areas, we want to ensure that existing businesses are able to be rebuilt in the aftermath of future storms, and also that the zoning aligns with the character of the existing uses. So to implement those goals, we have 2 actions that are subject to ULURP. The first is that we will establish a new East Shore subdistrict of the Special Coastal Risk District in Oakwood Beach, Grand Beach, and Ocean Breeze. And then there will be a zoning map change to reduce the size of the existing C11 commercial overlay in Grand Beach and reestablish it as a C13 commercial overlay. To walk through the provisions of the East Shore subdistrict of the Special Coastal Risk District, the first is that this subdistrict would limit all new development to single-family detached residences, and this is to ensure that there is not an increase of residential density over time in the buyout areas. The second is that we would establish a new CPC authorization for any new development or horizontal enlargement that does occur, and that would be to, again, make sure that any development that happens is undergoing sufficient review. And thirdly, the special district would limit community facilities with sleeping accommodations, again, with the goal of reducing the number of people who are living or sleeping or spending a significant amount of time in these areas. Any building that is sandy damaged or still being repaired or rebuilt from sandy would be able to do so as of right, and any homeowners that remain invest in their home, make retrofits, repair damages that do occur as of right. So the authorization would have a couple components that we'll go through now. The first is that any proposal for a single building on a existing zoning lot would be reviewed for any impacts that it may have on natural drainage, open spaces, and wetland areas. And the CPC or City Planning Commission would have the ability to modify bulk rules, mostly yard requirements in particular, to allow for additional buffering from wetlands. The CPC would also look to make sure that the proposed structure is located on improved street that's also serving other existing residences, and that the proposed development does not pose or minimizes to the extent practical the risk to public safety from natural hazards, including flooding, but also wildfires, which can occur in these areas due to their proximity to wetlands. Then the authorization would look at proposals for multiple structures somewhat differently. So a proposal for 2 or more structures on an existing zoning lot would first need to calculate the number of permitted dwelling units on a basis of 9,500 square feet per residential per residence. So once that amount of residential density is determined, and again, this would only be single-family detached homes, the applicant or proposal would then submit a proposal for configuring those units on those buildings on the zoning lot so that they achieve a superior site plan that minimizes the need for new infrastructure and minimizes impact to wetlands. So turning to the commercial overlay in Grand Beach, on slide 21, this is a picture of some of the existing businesses here. The goal of this rezoning on slide 22 is again to align the zoning with existing patterns of commercial development and uses. And so the existing C11 is mapped over these entire blocks fronting Father Capitano. And so the proposal would reduce this commercial overlay to the frontage of Father Capitano where there are existing commercial uses, and would reestablish it as C13, which has the same permitted range of uses allowed, but reduces the parking requirement and thereby makes development more feasible, especially for buildings that may be substantially damaged in the future and would be unable to rebuild under the existing C11 zone. Slide 23 is just our timeline. We have, prior to referral on April 24th, we undertook a number of outreach steps prior to ULURP, including to briefing community boards 2 and 3, Councilmember Mattio's office, the Borough President's office. We released our Resilient Neighborhoods report, and then in May, as Len mentioned, we were out at community boards 2 and 3 for public hearings and votes, and now we're here at the board in June.
And I would note that following Borough Board's hearing tonight, City Planning Commission also had a public hearing on the proposed zoning and rezoning. So if anybody can speak in favor or accomplish that in front of the commission itself, and then go before the civil and council for a public hearing as also before the day vote.
Where will that public hearing take place?
The City Planning Commission, the hearing it will be downtown. at
Oh, in
the-
Manhattan.
Yeah, 22, or 22 Regina.
Okay, any questions? Okay, Councilmember Mattio's office has a statement that they'd like to read. Rose, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm offering this testimony in support of the creation of the East Shore Special Coastal Risk District. As you know, the East Shore was one of the areas that was hardest hit by Superstorm Sandy. The devastation was far-reaching, and some of the neighborhoods clearly should be returned to nature. The enhanced buyout program created by the governor was intended to do just that. However, the program was and ought to be voluntary. As a result, many will remain in areas that will be significantly denuded of homes, and it is incumbent upon us to make sure any development that takes place makes sense given the new reality of the ground. I thank the New York City Department of City Planning for their work on this project, as well as the many community stakeholders who will enlist in its development. The proposed area will essentially amount to downzoning for the affected areas and prevent additional density in an area that cannot handle it. Further, it will allow the commercial properties on Father Capodanno Boulevard, which were not buyout eligible, to develop in a direction that will produce viable businesses. That is why I am supporting the creation of the East Shore Special Coastal Risk District. Thank you.
Okay, all right, if there's no questions or any further statements, we're going to move right to the resolution. Okay. Whereas the New York City Department of City Planning has determined that the establishment of an East Shore Special Coastal Risk District is in the best interest of the Borough of Staten Island and the City of New York and will help to limit density and preserve natural environments. And whereas DCP proposes to amend the zoning resolution under application numbers C170373, ZMR, and N170374, ZRR, to establish a new special district around the East Shore buyout areas in Oakwood Beach, Graham Beach, and Ocean Breeze. And whereas the provisions of the special district are intended to assist with the redevelopment, repair, and future sustainability of existing detached residences, directly address the reconstruction of homes damaged by Superstorm Sandy, limit all new development, prohibit community facilities with sleeping accommodations, and create a new city planning commission action for all new development and enlargements to ensure no increases in residential density or additional effects on sensitive natural areas or constrained infrastructure within the designated buyout areas. And whereas the proposal includes a zoning strategy to remove the current C11 commercial overlay in Graham Beach and establish a new C13 commercial overlay on the frontage of Father Capodanno Boulevard that would match existing commercial uses and development patterns in specific areas of Community Board 2 and 3 in the borough. And whereas all the actions contemplated herein are subjected to all applicable legal requirements and government approvals, including compliance with the Uniform Land Use Review Procedure pursuant to the requirements of Sections 197-C and 201 of the New York City Charter and the State City Environmental Quality Review Acts. And whereas the DCP has notified Community Boards 2 and 3 regarding this zoning amendment and as all affected community boards have recommended to approve the proposed changes for their respective districts. Therefore, be it resolved that the Staten Island Borough Board hereby approves this resolution. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye, okay, it is unanimously approved. Thank you. Okay, everything is good now. Just some final business for the board. We had no correspondence this month. Is there any old business? Any new business? Okay, can I entertain a motion to adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn. Meeting adjourned.